we had to walk across town to get to our next movie, and our next movie was Janet Planet, which is probably the biggest of the three that we saw. Definitely the biggest of the three that we saw. It's already been picked up by A24, which was we saw in the very first moment. It shows the A24 logo, which is always a good thing that you see that. This was written and directed by Annie Baker, and it stars... I don't have all my stuff in front of me, so I gotta look through his stuff. Julianne Nicholson and Zoe Ziegler. Julianne Nicholson plays the titular Janet, and her daughter is Lacey, played by Zoe Ziegler. And it's really the two of them kind of working through different seasons of their life in a summer together. Janet goes through several different iterations of relationships throughout the summer, and Lacey is constantly by her side. If Tim Travers, there's way too much going on and just chaos and you don't know what's happening, this is as polar opposite as you could possibly get, because this is a movie where nothing happens. It's a slice of life movie. Let me show you just how this summer goes. The movie opens with Julianne Nicholson, Janet, dating Wayne, played by Will Patton, who is getting way too old, but his voice still sounds the same. I recognized his voice before I recognized his close-up. Then you have a relationship with Regina, played by Sophie Okonedo, and it wraps up with a relationship with Avi, played by Elias Koteas. And again, through the whole thing, Janet is accompanied by Lacey. And I think I found it interesting. I don't know why the movie's called Janet Planet. I think it's the name of her acupuncture studio. But like that's the one place you saw. It was on the door to her acupuncture studio. But Lacey's really the main character. You're seeing Janet work through these relationships through Lacey's eyes. I don't know. These are the types of movies that you either get into or you don't. I was having trouble fully getting into this just because, I don't know, maybe it was because we went from Tim Travers to nothing to literally like just sitting there and watching, literally sitting there for a minute watching something cook in the microwave. Like that's the type of movie Janet Planet is. That's a literal scene in the movie. Then, and there was a lot of really interesting camera work in this where Lacey would be almost completely out of screen, but she was the only one in the scene. I don't know what they were trying to say with that, but there were scenes where you just saw like from her nose and eyes up, and that was it. Maybe it's just the fact that, you know, she's a child and trying to live in an adult world and trying to interact with an adult world. Lacey has no friends. Her only friend is her mother. She's in the room for everything, including some really not appropriate conversations for her to be in the room for, which you don't, but there's some good reveals in there that got some good laughs out of the crowd. Yeah, I'm probably like, there's some good stuff going on here, and including one thing that we mentioned when we were going through this. I have no idea what happened at the end. Like there's a moment at the end with Elias Koteas that makes no sense, and none of us know what's going on. It's a movie. It's one of those movies that you feel like the end of every scene of the movie could have been the end of the movie, because it's such a slice of life that it could end at any time and it would make sense. And that's how the ending happens too. It's just, oh, well, maybe this one actually is the ending, which I think that was also partially brought on because Todd told me it was a 90-minute movie and ended up being a 110-minute movie. And so for the last like 30 minutes of the movie, I'm like, this might be the last scene. It would make sense if this was the last scene. Nope, that's not the last scene. This could be the last scene. Nope, that's not the last scene either. Okay, so 20 minutes later, is this the last? This is the last scene. Okay. Yeah, so I'm probably around 2.5 stars. I gave it 3. I wanted to be generous on my ballots, so I gave it 3 on the ballot. And this is one that I know, Todd, you mentioned, you heard that Maya Hawke said it's one of her favorite movies of all time that she just had watched.
Yeah.
And so it is getting some buzz. Like I said, A24 has picked it up, which means it's gonna get a theatrical release at some point this summer, probably. But yeah, that's where I'm at with Janet Planet. It's one of those slice of life movies that you are either in for or you're not in for, and I just wasn't feeling it, but it was still interesting throughout.
Yeah, this is one of those movies that I feel like if it wasn't in English, it would be like Zach written all over it. Like this would be a Zach 4-star movie.
This is a Dardenne movie if it was in French.
Yeah, or even like The Quiet Girl or something. Like Zoe Ziegler is so expressionless throughout the whole movie. Like she has zero emotion. Like the opening scene.
But that's what makes it though. That's what makes her an interesting character.
The first words out of her mouth, the first words of the movie are, "I'm going to kill myself," and she's on the phone with her mother. And
summer camp.
And it's like I was like okay, I kind of know what to expect after that, but I didn't, because I mean it's not really that abrupt after that at all. I do really like the structure of breaking it up into chapters. I enjoy that most of the time. Like I really like the dead girl. And I thought it was gonna have something like that where it's like they were gonna build on each other, and then one was gonna be climactic, but they're not. Like I mean they could have been almost in any order. It just like screw with the other with the Lacey stuff, and you could have done it any way. My favorite. I mean, I always have been a big fan of Elias Koteas, and he doesn't really have a ton to do in this, but he probably was my favorite part. And there's a part where Janet and Sofia Grenato's character get high, and that's just really that's a really great sequence, and probably the most real I felt, because I feel like I've heard that conversation before. I'm right with you though, Terry. I gave it 3 on my ballot. I'm probably in the 2.5, 3-star range for the movie. I was probably more on its wavelength than you were. I just it's something that is a little hard to fully grasp. Yeah, especially when you're coming from something crazy before it. But
right, yeah, we definitely watched this in the wrong order.
Yeah.
But that's just how we had to do it. Yeah, it's like there are indie movies that are just those slice of life movies, but this one, like you said, it did nothing, right? It had no plot. It had nothing to it.
Yeah, it was pretty much about a young girl who doesn't want to go to camp, so she stays home with her mom and deals with her and her lovers.
And just is the fly on the wall in every scene.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's Janet Planet. So, yeah.
You'll probably be able to see it. I wonder if it actually has a release date listed. Let's look this up real quick. Played at a bunch of film festivals already. I guess it premiered last year at Telluride. And it has a limited release June 21st and a wide release June 28th. So
okay, so in a little over a month, you'll be able to see Janet Planet around the country. Interesting. Okay.
Pretty cool. Yeah, I knew that one was one of the more high profile ones they had at the festival. They don't normally get like huge movies, like huge Oscar movies. Like every once in a while they'll get a Winter's Bone or something like that. But yeah, when something pops up like this, I'm just like, okay, we kind of got to make that one of our priorities.
And it took place in like the early 90s too, which one of the things I turned to Todd at one point and said to him, because our screening was closed captioned, and so we had the subtitles on the screen, and at one point I'm glad we did, because Lacey was sitting there watching TV, and on the subtitles it said theme song to Clarissa Explains It All playing in the background. I'm like, I would not have pulled that if it had not told me, but I love the fact that it told me, because that was awesome.
Yeah,
okay.
I mean, I didn't really know when it was set throughout almost the entire movie, and until that, I was like, okay, that definitely places it now, because I mean, it could have been the 70s, it could have been the 80s, didn't really matter.
The cars were like late 80s, early 90s. The mall designs were late 80s, early 90s.
But then Janet also said her father, like, was a Holocaust survivor or something. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know. I mean, it's like it was a gray area.
Okay.